The truth is an irony, just like animal farm. Justice mean inequity. So who go say the truth? Who go say the truth? Christian can say silence. Islamic leaders silence. Kings and queens silence. Traditional leaders silence. So who go say the truth? We are them go so confused the call. Now by area why no better. We are them go so confused the call. One guy's out here why no better. Who go say the truth? Who go say the truth? Oh, he need it now, see what I see so. Now your friend on a nine come as them. Only papi obeka nice and yeah. So I want to bet you were too. Everybody was afraid. And until I learned to my cottage again, once my boy dumping one and I see. But who go tell the truth? Nanai or say me. Nanso bien person beka wansam because everybody is afraid. Anya safwe muayini. Akuku drofo nyina dalima. And who go say the truth? Obiaja konson so to grow Germansa to me be a cacobrafo. Efo anyina ye. Efo. When you know ye. Na so kutrata down na so be dia back or why no keke. I fene for be man mo pia for efo e. Ne cross on my mo. Anya safwe mo ayini. Akuku drofo nyina dalima. And who go say the truth? Abaya di bote chino. Yedi bi bebo nyande bi. Kachi se udi oma upipi numa. Would your mind never shine my friend for some? But who go tell the truth? TUC silence. Even journalists silence. So then who go say the truth? Right is right. Wrong is wrong, no matter how you justify. You say you wanna get rid of corruption. Someone want to help you. Now the person become your target. Jobless no they mean senseless. Poverty no they mean useless. One day them go resist.
Hello and welcome once again to MyView show live on Today Ghana News TV, and with me Jerome as your host. As usual, I just wish to remind you that we are also live on Switch by satellite and on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, all on Today Ghana News TV. And you can equally follow us on Twitter and TikTok, as well as podcasts on Anchor FM. It's always a pleasure to welcome you in the evening every Monday, where we share our views on pertinent issues pertaining to our mother country, Ghana. And this evening, once again, we want to take off from where we ended last week. It is a very simple question. Is the Western style of democracy fit for Africa? What are your views? How does that translate into what is practiced in Ghana and other African countries? Is that the best for us? Put your views together as I put mine as well. And when we return, I would introduce the guest for this evening, who will equally put his expertise and his views on democracy at our disposal. Once again, good evening and welcome to the show.
Waiting they happy for Africa. Dusty old men holding on to power, leading the people to where? The grave? Wicked criminal leaders. See them a come, them coming like an angel. But them a thief, them no say them a thief. Mr. President, you coming like a savior. But you a thief, you know say you a thief. Thief President, why a thieving so? Thief man, why a thief so? The people they must suffer, but you don't care so. Thief man, why a thief so? I see the people crying every day, yo. They want food, them can't find. I see the youth looking for a job, oh, every way, them can't find. Mr. President, him just barely food, oh. Him and the family, they no suffer, oh. Suffer, no poor man they suffer, oh. Suffer, rich man know they suffer. Suffer, no poor man they suffer, oh. Suffer, rich man they suffer, lie. See them a come, they coming like an angel. But them a thief, them no say them a thief. Mr. President, you coming like a savior. But you a thief, you know say you a thief. Thief President, why a thieving so? Thief man, why a thief so? The people they must suffer, but you don't care so. Thief man, why a thief so? Mr. President, why you dey lie so? Before election, you tell me you be angel. When you sick, you run go a London. When we sick, oh, we die for Kolebo. Mr. President, why you wicked so? Tell me how you dey sleep at night, oh. See them a come, they coming like an angel. But them a thief, them no say them a thief. Mr. President, you coming like a savior. But you a thief, you know say you a thief. Thief President, why a thieving so? Thief man, why a thief so? The people they must suffer, but you don't care so. Thief man, why a thief so? This is Mr. Traitor, Master of Sleeping. This is Mr. Traitor, Master of Sleeping.
Welcome back from our beautiful commercial break. And let me just remind you that success, they always say, starts with a very simple step. And today we are very proud as a media team, Today Ghana News TV, we have chopped 2 good years. It's as a result of your support and your total patronage that has brought us this far. Keep the good work and keep sharing more information with others, that together we will always be able to support one another, to entertain ourselves, and to have more information and more education. And as I rightly said, this evening, wherever you are, you can equally follow me live on my Facebook account, Desire Aliabaka, and you'll be part of this program. And the beginning is where we are. It's the Western style of democracy fit for Africa. We have no other person this evening but our own brother who was with us last week in the person of Mr. Conrad Damba. And he is going to help us to see if indeed this Western style of democracy really fits for Africa, and especially Ghana in particular. Mr. Damba, you are most welcome to the program once again.
Thank you very much, my brother. And a good evening to your cherished listeners, my brothers and sisters.
Wonderful. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are fully seated, and all the ears are opened to hear more from you on this very sensitive topic that is so dear to us. You know, the last time we were talking about the relevance of the democratic principles that is being run in Africa. You actually brought in the chieftaincy issues or the chieftaincy system that was running before we sort of got corrupted by the Western style of democracy. Maybe as a point of recap, you could throw more light on that area, and then we shoot more into the main topic.
So thank you very much, my brother. So I think that when I made that statement, I actually said that we'll try and spend some time today to prove that democracy is not alien in Africa, if not the fact that democracy actually started in Africa. And I don't just want to reduce it to the villages. I mean, all of us, if we look closely at the structures of our villages and our towns, how they are governed, you realize that there are democratic principles wired into our systems of governance, such that even in a chief that becomes autocratic, there is always a way of getting rid of them in some shape or form. In fact, I mean, most of our societies, you know that a chief can be deskinned or destooled, you know. And when we go through our history, unfortunately, for us as Africans, we haven't told our story very well for a couple of reasons. They say until the lion tells the story of what happens in the forest, the hunter will always be victorious.
Sure.
You know, we read our history, we only hear of the lives of King Agokoli. When somebody writes your history for you and wants to subjugate you, they will tell you about the bad part of your history. But what I wanted to start with today was to basically say, look, I mean, I love history. I did history in secondary school, and I still study on my personal lesson as a passion. Democracy is actually touted to have started from Africa. Remember the ancient kingdom or empire of Egypt, which is actually called Kemet. You know, so the original name for Egypt was Kemet. It was the likes of you and I that ran Egypt, not the modern foreign, pharaohs that you see. You know, the pictures you see. If you look at the bust or the statues of kings like Tutankhamun and most of those ones, you notice that their noses are like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
The nose I have, the nose you have, it is not a Caucasian one. If we had a Caucasian one, it would have been long. You know, and you look at them and in fact, Egypt was ruled for almost 1,000 years by black pharaohs. Black pharaohs from, if you like, the upper Egypt, somewhere around the Kushites, you know, the kingdom of Kush. They were pharaonic in all that they did. They had their kings, similar culture. So if you go to Sudan today, you see pyramids there. The culture they had, they actually conquered Egypt proper and ruled Egypt proper for a long period of time. The Egyptians we see today as Arabs are the latter day people who came with the Islamic conquest and then took over that territory.
Okay.
But the original Egyptians were like you and I. And for thousands of years, democracy is actually touted to have started in Egypt, where they tried various systems of governance and came to one that was a bit more stable. And it was almost what we call the constitutional monarchy, where the king has his rights, but there were checks and balances. In fact, it is said that the famous Greek Athenian Sonos, the philosopher who wrote the constitutional and judicial reforms in Athens, and it started as having been the originator of democracy, visited Egypt, learned, stayed in Egypt before moving. Those days, Egypt was like United States now. If you're on top of your game, you had to go there and learn. And so there are many scholars, and that's why you see, even at Roman times, why is it that Antony and Cleopatra? Why will the mighty Roman guys be, what would they be doing in Egypt? And so that starts the origin of democracy. But let me not rob the Arabs of Egypt. Let's even assume that's not the case. If you look at through African empires, and we give a few examples, democracy was steeped in it. And I would particularly like to use the empire of Mali as a starting point. But across the length and breadth of sub-Saharan Africa, democracy was already there when Europe was under feudalism. You know, the principle where you live in this village, this man owns the whole village and all the people there, you all work for him. He gives you enough to eat. You know, when the king is raising an army, he selects which of his laborers will be army. He will be a knight on his horse. The rest of you will be infantry foot soldiers holding forks, spears, wherever you can get clubs and stuff like that. At that time, Africa was blooming and flourishing through democracy. I'll give you a couple of examples. We all know the Mushi Kingdom. It will interest you to know that the Mushi Kingdom and the ancient Ghana Empire. Remember, we had the ancient Ghana Empire. That was one of the foremost powerful empires around the Sahara Desert, from today Mali, Niger, coming down Burkina Faso, all of the way down to Ghana.
Yeah,
it literally ruled across all the way to Guinea, to the west, all the way to Senegal, right down to the east Congo basins. They had democratic principles. It's interesting to know that, look, most of these had constitutions. And when I say the reason we've lost our ability to hold on to democracy as one that came from us is because a lot of what we did was via oral history. Remember the griots?
yeah, okay.
The ancient kingdoms of Mali, Ghana, Songhai, you had a griot. Even today, you go to the king's and chief's palaces, they have a griot who tells the oral history. We didn't quite have a lot of written history. And that is why a lot of them is lost. But in the Mushi kingdom, they had a constitution. And we'll come to what it was. And if a king did not follow it, the king could be impeached. And all social classes were given representation in governance, whatever your rank was. In fact, when we come to this, the main one I want us to dissect today, you will see how elaborate they are. And you will find that actually, the original Bill of Rights, the first time anything called a Bill of Rights was ever put forward, was in Africa.
Okay.
The ancient Ghana Empire had a similar tradition to the ancient Musi Empire. Remember, it is generals who, when the Empire of Ghana was collapsing, if you are a general and you were losing, you make your way down south. Nobody was going down into the desert. Further down south to set up your own French kingdom. The ancient Ghana Empire had similar principles of a constitution that the king could be impeached if he did not follow. And in fact, the prime minister, remember I talked about prime minister, kings did not rule. They had a set of ministers and prime ministers. And the prime minister could remove the emperor or the king if they were seen not to be doing the will of the people. In fact, one of the kingdoms that typifies democracy in this purest sense was the kingdom of Congo, in the modern day Congo. In the kingdom of Congo, rulers were put there based on their personal qualities and not based on who their father was, and so on and so forth. In fact, village chiefs, governors were elected. And of course, they didn't have a sunset clause, so there was no principle of 4 years we throw you out. As long as your personalities were appealing to the people, they continued to keep you there. But as soon as you became toxic, the same people could call an election to remove you or impeach you. That is how sophisticated it was. And women were almost compulsorily required to be represented in every society. And that takes us down to, actually, let me put my charger on before you lose me. My battery is crying for help.
I'm sure my producer will come up with it. Hello, producer. Then we can take some of the comments that are running so far, and then we will see how it works out. Brimpong, you have just joined us here. Congratulations for your 2 years anniversary. Watching from Warsaw, Poland. I love listening to Comrade Damba. It's like being in a classroom. Wonderful, Brimpong. We are grateful that you are getting a lot of information from Comrade Damba. Mavis, we are grateful once again you are part of the show. I'm loving your station and all the programs. 2 years is not an easy road. I will encourage you to do more and maintain your standards. Watching from Portugal. Mavis, we are very grateful. We'll definitely work out. We either maintain or we go higher. Gifty Ahovi, greetings, my lovely people. Gifty, we are greeting you as well. We know one of these days you will pop up on the show once again. We hope you are doing very well. And then I hope there are still other ones that are coming up. But once again, as the messages begin to trip in, we just want to remind you that it's a pleasure always serving you. And all too soon, we are 2 years on the block. And we are grateful that all the programs we are bringing you are very meaningful and helping all of us. So we will continue to do our best. And we hope you will continue to join us, and then together we will develop our network greater and better by the day. We're asking ourselves this evening, is a Western democracy very suitable for Africa? And we did a bit of it last week, and we're continuing with no other person but our own comrade, Conrad Damba, all the way from the UK and Ireland chapter. Oh, Mr. Damba, welcome back.
Thank you, my brother. So I've
Yeah,
got full electric juice now to keep running.
powerful.
Yes.
A
So
lot of people, we just got a comment that a lot of people love to listen to you. It's like being in a classroom and then your knowledge is now transcending. So they are all ears for you.
oh, it is not my knowledge. Oh. I am simply repeating what others before have written. They say if you don't know where you come from, you are more likely not to know where you are going.
Where you are going,
You know?
perfect.
Yeah, so thank you. But coming back to it, if you compare the kind of society that the ancient kingdom of Congo was, you would realize that all the tenets of democracy were there. And then let me now go to, if you like, the main meal that I thought we would digest today.
Okay.
So when we read European Western literature, we are told that the first constitutional or democratic type thing that ever happened was the so-called Magna Carta in the UK. And it is started to have been set up somewhere between 1215 and 1297 AD. So even if you strike a midpoint, you are looking at somewhere around 1250, 1246, thereabouts. And that is supposed to have been done by the nobles in England to force King John then to be able to itemize the rights of the people and the rights of the king, responsibilities as well, and almost hold the king to account. We bite into it. We are told that the American Bill of Rights, somewhere around 1689, we were told it was set up, and all the we, the people, and all that stuff, itemizing human rights and all that stuff. But you see, as African scholars have dug our past, historians and anthropologists have dug through our past, it is actually agreed now that the first Bill of Rights actually happened in Africa.
Okay.
Now, it contained 46 articles. You would have heard we just talked about the ancient kingdom of Ghana. That was quite seminal because after the ancient kingdom of Ghana, remember when Ghana was in decline, Sundiata Keita conquered the ancient kingdom of Ghana. And of course, you inherit all of that empire that it had running to the west, Senegal, all the way to the east, down to the south and bordering the Sahara Desert. And they were rich through the trans-Saharan slave trade, through a lot of trade. When he conquered, he founded the kingdom of Mali, and then the empire of Mali, at its decline, it was then also, if you like, conquered and taken over by the empire of Songhai. One thing you notice, we just talked about some of the democratic principles in the empire of Ghana. Mansa Musa's empire of Ghana. Remember, he is still touted as the richest man that ever lived. Now, when Sundiata Keita took over, this is telling he learned from how the ancient kingdom of Ghana was ruled to get stability. When the people have a stake in something and they are represented in the governance, they are less likely to overthrow. And so when you see some of those empires and the kings and the emperors rule for 50 years, 40 years, it's because there were structures that were in place to allow no one to be able to challenge legitimacy and all that stuff. But at the same time, make sure that you have good kings. What he did is famously called the Kurakan Fuga. It's basically the plains of a rock. The place where they did it is a particular, it's still in Mali, it's a place of tourism. And I encourage all of us to try and go there and try and see some of these things. They basically had a large plain. It was made of granite, but a plain, flat area where they sat. After Sundiata Keita had warred and won his military victory of the ancient kingdom of Ghana, he summoned the people, the nobles, the soldiers there. And there he declared what he divided the world. In other words, he issued 46 articles. Of course, he would not have written it, where it structured their society and it brought forward the principles of democracy. In fact, if you like, female empowerment was seminal in that. One of the things I'll do is I'll read some of the stuff because we may not have time to go through all 46, but I'll go through the key elements. It was mainly broken into principles or articles around social governance or organizing the society, laws in relation to goods, preservation of nature. So remember, as far back as 1236, Africans had constitutionally enshrined the protection of our environment. Remember, it was bordering the Sahara Desert. So it is not today somebody is going to tell us about climate change. You know, now let me go to some of them quickly. The first article basically divided the society into about 16 clans, which each clan being responsible for specific elements. You know, some would be responsible for, if you like, particular activities. And you still see to this day, you go to a village, you have this king there. I mean, these people, they are responsible. They are the hunters. These people are doing fishermen. These people are the tanners. These people are the blacksmiths. Basically structuring the society so that everybody had, if you like, a stake in what they were doing. Now, you had a particular group called the Nyamakales that were devoted to telling the truth to the chiefs. And it's instructive here. They were protected. In fact, in the ancient kingdom of the ancient Moshi kingdom, when a king appointed ministers, they could not fire them by heart because they had the power to be able to tell the truth to the king. And of course, if you told the truth and you did that, he'll fire you. So they had that protection. But this is Article 2. In that constitution, it was a constitution that was memorized and put forward, and the Griot sang it. So it was passed on. And to this date, if you go to that part of our world, in Mali, you'll see fathers still be able to pass some of these articles down to the sons through oral tradition. And this is where you have a specific article that protected a particular clan and gave them the right to tell the truth to the chiefs and to the king and to be his counselors and to defend the speech of the people. In other words, freedom of speech was enshrined here. And you had a dedicated class that was responsible for making sure you can tell truth to the chief, and anybody who spoke that truth did not suffer unjustly. That is Article 2. So when you are hearing people say my Fifth Amendment, my First Amendment, all those stuff, ancient Malians, ancient Africans taught this and enshrined it into their constitution. They split 5 clans that were responsible for teaching and education in Islam. Islam was the predominant religion in the ancient kingdoms of Ghana, which was, of course, taken over by the kingdoms of Mali and, of course, Songhai eventually. And so when you look at it, you had a class of people mandated for education and teaching. In fact, it is argued that the first university in the world was the University of Odagost, which was in the ancient kingdom of Ghana. You know, so it is, see, the picture we paint is the picture that we keep in our head. But let me proceed to what we are doing. I'll skip Article 4. It's talking about structuring people into age groups. It still happens today, as for companies and stuff like that. In African society today, you still have that thing. So those born 3 years before you and 3 years after you, you are classed in one group. So you have various groups. And that was quite groundbreaking, if you like, but it is still practiced to date through passing on. We don't know where it was written, but you go to various societies. We are losing some of it, but in the villages, you still have those cohorts there. Article 5, I'll read it verbatim. Everybody has a right to life and the preservation of physical integrity. Accordingly, any attempt to deprive one's fellow being of life is punished with death.
Ooh.
Now, this was compiled by African scholars in French subsequently and then translated in English. And I'm reading verbatim.
Okay.
You can look it up, the Kurukan Fuga, Kuruknfuga. So the right to life was enshrined in Article 5. We just thought Article 2 was the right to what? Freedom of speech and telling truth to power. 5 was preservation of life. Article 5 was basically around making sure there was supervision and ensuring that there was a fight against laziness and idleness. It says, to win the battle of prosperity, the general system of supervision has been established to fight against laziness and idleness. So when people tell you that Africans we have always been lazy by nature, this law was put in place, right? Then I go down to Article 7. I'll try and go as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I'll pick the key ones. Article 8 said this, that the Keita family is nominated as the reigning family upon the empire. This is Sundiata Keita, remember, the founder of the Kingdom of Mali. His right to rule was enshrined in the constitution, just like King John's legitimacy was enshrined in the Magna Carta. So this is not like just ruled by anyhow. He was specifically, even though he won the military victory, he started the empire. His right to rule was enshrined in Article 8. Article 9, children's education behoves the entire society, and the paternal authority in consequence falls to everyone. So children's education was given paramountcy of place, and everyone had to ensure it. Article 10 is about offering condolences mutually. Article 11 says when your wife or your child runs away, stop running after them if they enter a neighbor's house. My brother, you know that to this day in our villages, if a man and a woman are having a problem in the house and the wife runs to the neighbor's house, the man is not allowed by tradition to pursue her in there.
Yeah.
So this is part of the genesis of it, right?
That's interesting.
Being patrilineal in nature, and that's why you see that a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, our succession is what? Patrilineal in nature, where it is relinquished to the son upon the father's going. But however, it said this, that the succession is patrilineal, but can never be relinquished power to a son where one of his father's brothers is still alive. Now you understand why, if your father is chief, most likely it goes to the uncle if your father passes to glory, unlike here where it's father and son thing.
Yeah.
So that was enshrined in their constitution, right? It talks about, I'll skip quickly, never offend the Nyares, that's talented people. That is respect for talent. Never offend women, our mothers. That's Article 14. Simple 5-letter word. Never offend women, our mothers. 15. Never beat a married woman before a husband has tried to correct the problem. I know, again, in our villages, it is there. But these are some of the social ones. Let me go through and see which ones we can pull out clearly. Now, I like this funny one. Article 17 says, lies that have been lived for 40 years should be considered like truths.
That one really fits into the politicians of late.
Perhaps
you tell a lie, repeat it, and it becomes the truth.
That is, we credit it to Goebbels, don't we? The famous propagandist for Hitler. But it sounds like the Malians got to it several centuries before
years earlier.
Yes. 19 talks about respecting your in-laws. Article 20 says, do not ill-treat slaves. We are masters of the slave, but not the bag he carries. Article 20 is funny. It says that do not follow up your constant attention with the wives of the chief, of the neighbor, of the marabout, or the priest, or a friend and partner. 22, vanity is a sign of weakness, and humility is a sign of greatness. 23, never betray one another. Respect your word and let your word be your honor. 23.4, do not maltreat foreigners. 25, I like this. The ambassador does not risk anything in Mandan. That is in the Kingdom of Mali. If you are an ambassador to the Kingdom of Mali, you were protected like the Geneva Convention protects you. This is the Geneva Convention centuries before it was put in place. Right? I mean, there are other stuff. I will just skip some of them and go down straight into a few others. It talks about dowry. Dowry is fixed at 3 cows, 1 for the girl, 2 for the father and the mother. My brother, you know it. Among me, but among my in-laws and most of Northern Ghana, it's cattle.
It's cattle, yeah.
Their constitution. And 30 talks about it. In Monday, divorce is tolerated for one of the following reasons: impotence of the man, madness of one of the spouses, incapability of assuming marital obligations. However, the divorce must occur out of the village, right? So that was quite advanced. 31, we should help those who are in need. Now, in relation to goods, protection of property, Article 32, there are 5 ways to acquire property: buying it, donation, exchange, work, or inheriting. Any other form without convincing testimony is doubtful. This is an anti-corruption clause. So if you attain assets without buying, getting it from a donation, an exchange, work, or inheriting, it is doubtful. Any object found without a known person becomes common property only after 4 years.
Please take it again. Take that one again.
Any object, this is Article 33, any object found without a known owner becomes common property only after 4 years. So within 4 years, it is still not yours. The person can come back and claim it with proof. And then comes this one, which I'm sure it rhymes with you. 34, the 4th heifer born is the property of the guardian. You know, like the calf.
Yeah.
1 egg out of every 4 is the property of the guardian of the laying hen. Remember, today in our part of the world, when you buy cows or cattle, You don't rear them. You give them to our brothers, the Fulanis, to rear. Remember? And they will take care of it for you. But when your animal produces, every fourth item is theirs. So the first three are yours. That is their reward. That is like splitting it into 4. Their reward was 25%. And the Article 35 even tells you the value of a cow. It says 1 bovine should be exchanged for 4 sheep or 4 goats. That is common in our part of the world. Now, this is interesting. Note this one, Article 36. To satisfy one's hunger is not robbery if you don't take away anything in your bag or your pocket. I remember growing up in northern Ghana, when the granite farms and then the Nara, the millet, the early millet, by village rules, you can go, if you go into somebody's farm, you can eat as much as you want to satisfy your hunger. But the moment you take 1 grain and walk out of the farm, then you're a thief.
You're a thief, okay.
To this date, it is still practiced. Of course, modernism, we are throwing some of these away and now result. So the principle then is you can satisfy your hunger. Remember in those days, if you are walking and you are a stranger and you are hungry and there's no house nearby, but there are farms, you are allowed to help yourself. But don't put anything in your bag or your pocket. The moment you take to carry away, don't carry a takeaway bowl. That's what they meant. The moment you fill your takeaway bowl or pocket, it is theft. But as long as you are eating it on the farm, it is not. And to this day, it's practiced. Perhaps when we were younger, that was practiced. In many African societies, preservation of nature. There was a minister called Fakombe who was nominated to be the chief of hunters to regulate it. That's 37. Article 38 said this: before you set fire to a bush, don't look on the ground. Raise your head in the direction of the top of the tree to see whether they bear fruit or flowers. This is an African adage for saying a tree that is bearing fruit shall not be cut down. Whether it's bearing fruit, it has got flowers, it is still a live tree. Of course, if it's a dry tree, like those trees that are completely unproductive, you can take it down. This was environmental protection. And this is, I know this will rhyme with you as well. Domestic animals should be tied up during cultivation and freed up after harvest, so that your cow won't run into another man's farm and destroy their crops. It was only the dog, the cat, the duck, and poultry that were allowed not to be bound by measure, and they can roam around. Of course, the dog or the duck or the hens will not go and uproot your millet or your corn or your granules. Quickly, let me go to the last set. The final disposal. Article 40 says, respect your kinship, your marriage, and the neighborhood. Article 42 says, you can kill the enemy, but do not humiliate him. This was a rule to stop torture.
Respect, you can kill the enemy.
Yes, but not humiliate him. In other words, when you went to war and you captured war, those days when they captured people, they either sell them, but you were not allowed to torture them to death. If you want to kill them, you can dispose of them in battle, but you don't host them and do waterboarding on them like Guantanamo Bay.
Okay.
In big assemblies, be satisfied with your lawful representatives. This is telling. Every structure of the society had representatives there. So when you went into the assembly, your representatives were representing you like your parliament. This was to ensure that those who came to the gallery of parliament don't come there and start, if you like, hooting at the other side or making proceedings on what? If you like, difficult to proceed, if that makes sense. 43 was nominating somebody, this thing about playmates. The Dagabas and the Fafras are playmates. That is part of the origin. Clans were allowed to be playmates for each others. The Gunjas and the Kasines, the Dagabas and the Fafras. You still have all of that. That is part of what was passed down. The final Article 44 said, all those who will transgress these rules will be punished. Everyone is bound to make effective their implementation. This was effectively making it clear that this charter, that is called the Mandan Charter, that was proclaimed in Kurukan by Mansa Musa and his nobles. Everyone was responsible for protecting this constitution. Can you not see a very eerie resemblance of this to some of the very modern constitutions without? So when I said the last time that we have always had democracy in Africa, and from this, of course, when the ancient kingdom of Mali was collapsing, the ancient kingdom of Songhai took over. A lot of these principles that were tried and tested, they were taken over by the kingdom of what? Askia the Great, remember?
Okay.
Askia the Great, he also, just as what do you call it? Sundiata Keita conquered Mansa Musa's kingdom long after Mansa Musa was gone and took over. The ancient kingdom of Songhai came along when the ancient kingdom of Mali was on the descendancy. They also conquered, took over, and expanded even more down to modern day Nigeria, all over it. Those empires were across the breadth of Africa before colonialists came and sliced us up like pizza.
Yeah.
And that is why you have Evers in Togo, Evers in Ghana. You have Ashantis in Ghana, Ashantis in Cote d'Ivoire. You have Frafres in Burkina Faso, Frafres in Ghana. You have Dagabes in Ghana and Dagabes in Burkina Faso. So when you look at all this, it is difficult for you to come to a conclusion that democracy is alien to the African core. What we got was, of course, because these were passed down by oral tradition. And if you go to, as I said, if you go to that part of Mali to date, it behoves on every father to pass on the teachings. You have rites of initiation when you are becoming a teenager. In fact, one of the rules I didn't mention, it said, I don't need to go back to it, I think 21 or so. It said that a young girl can be married when they become pubescent, but a young man could only marry when they were 20 years old. This was to avoid some adventurer going around impregnating people's daughters or marrying when they can't take care of them. So society was structured by in fact, it was so prescriptive, not as high level as our modern constitution that need a Supreme Court to interpret. These ones were very clear. And you could see the democratic tenets behind them. But you see, the sad part is because they were not, it only takes the French to come and discover these. Of course, some griots wrote in latter part of it because they wrote in Arabic. And there are still, because unfortunately in war, some of these scripts would have been lost when kingdoms were burnt. Okay. But the reality of the case is, this is evidence that democracy is not alien to Africa. The principles of democracy, remember we talked about it last week and we said it's a commitment to certain institutions. You can see there are various roles being played, institutions, people with specific rules. Rule of law, this was their law. Civil society, the large part of it talked about how you conduct yourself with civil society. Political accountability, freedom of speech, the right to rule was in the constitution, not arbitrary. So
where we are now, it means that the West has actually stolen a lot from we in the African continent, turned it to their advantage, and has come back to now exploit us.
Effectively, the first thing they did was they converted our chiefs who were following these rules to indirect henchmen, gave them a lot of schnapps and stuff like that, corrupted our chiefs, and told them that our way of life was not good enough. So we dumped it. And then we were now following them. And the corrupted version of democracy they gave us. And that is why today, some of the colonial laws we still have, we inherited it from them. And they built it into our psyche that we are dictators by nature. We are lawless. We don't have order. We are not capable of governing ourselves. Until Kwame Nkrumah proved that the black man is capable of what? Running his own affairs. How can you tell me the African who brought Mansa Musa, made him the richest man ever, Sundiata Keita, Askia, our own Samori, the Napoleon of Africa? How do you come and tell us that these are the same people that cannot rule themselves, that we didn't have any democracy? But it's the corrupted version we are looking at. The values, if we go back to our values, we don't even need anybody to preach democracy to us.
Yeah, I think what you have just said now is in sync with what Emma Davis is saying. Emma is of the opinion that with all that you have said, should we therefore consider developing our own democracy engraved with our traditions and culture?
Sankofa is the answer. See, what the kind of democracy, this winner takes all thing, has always been ancient to African culture. You would see there would be a powerful person in there, but there were checks and balances. Not the current thing where, if you look at these articles, even Mansa Musa, let me be clear, even Sundiata Keita, who through dint of, if you like, he was not born a royal. Yeah. Through meritocracy, he got there, but he had to be put through a constitution. And he could appoint ministers, he couldn't fire them. Unlike our case where the president can appoint ministers as many as he likes. If they talk, he will fire. Parliament is beholden to our president. And so we can think about our democracy and reshape it in line with our culture. Democracy is in our culture. We have corrupted it, and now we think democracy is some foreign imported stuff. They took it, went and refined it, and brought it a version that is bastardized to us, just like they do to our gold and our cocoa. They will take our cocoa away and bring you Swiss chocolate, and we'll be enjoying and say, we like Swiss chocolate. Ferrero Rocher, we like that one, but we don't like Golden Tree. Our gold nuggets, we sell our gold to them, and they bring us back gold jewelry. We go and buy them. It's the same principle. Democracy is good. We always had our African democracy that had absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing is perfect. But we can cure some of this winner-takes-all mentality of the West by going back to some of the principles that enabled our empires to flourish. The way Ghana is being run now is not the way Mansa Musa ran the ancient Ghana kingdom to make it a big empire and to become the richest in the world. The man who crashed world gold prices just by his trip to Mecca, he gave away so much that world gold prices collapsed. Almost a decade in a row, 8 years in a row. You cannot, is this the kind of Ghana? Look, 6 years, we have collapsed the country. The kind of democracy that had checks and balances, as we have just looked at, that respected right to property, that had checks on corruption, that ensured that the vulnerable were protected. It was an orderly society that allowed progress to grow. And so democracy, I believe, is in us as Africans. Even at the village level, it's the village elders that make decisions. The chief can't just order everybody about. He can, of course, use his voice, but he won't go far.
But now let's look at it from this angle. If you look at China, during their developmental age, they walled out all the foreign influence while systematically developing its human and economic capacity within themselves and outside the country. You know, now here we have the current invasion of Chinese into the African continent, not even to talk about our country, Ghana. So looking at it from this point, should Ghana or Africa, for that matter, not consider the Chinese system of rule and do same as they saw fit, which gave them the current power that they are having today?
That is a good question and echoes what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
In brief, if you noticed, when I gave the Kingdom of Congo, they had direct representative government. Governors and chiefs were elected. When we talked about the Moshi, the Ghana Empire, the Kingdom of Mali, there was no direct election, but there was that representative appointment on merit and all that stuff. So even then, in Africa, in our democracy in Africa, what was happening in the Congo Basin was different from what was happening in the Ghana Empire, the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire. That still supports the view that runs today that there's no single approach. What is important is what works best. And that's why I like Deng Xiaoping of China. He said it in an economic perspective, capitalism, communism, but it can be transferred to democracy. He said, it doesn't matter the color of the cat as long as it can catch mice. And that is why he used capitalist ideals, if you like, market-oriented ideals to be able to develop China whilst keeping its communist character, its socialist character. In the same vein, does it really matter how the democracy is structured, whether it's constitutional monarchy, whether it's parliamentary democracy or presidential system as in the US, as long as it is catching the minds, as long as it's delivering? Societies are different with different values, different ways of getting to their approach. Somebody is flying, they do not need the diesel that you are putting in your car to drive to the same location. Both are means of transport. And so, look, even in Africa, we have the Francophone, their style of governance is different. In Europe, like I said the other time. So, should we go the China way? If it works, why not? It's elections democracy, as we can see in the ancient kingdom of Congo. They flourished. There was direct elections. In the ancient kingdoms of Ghana, which were even flourishing better, they had their form of democracy with a constitution, a bill of human rights, and they still did the trick. You can even go down into kingdoms, the Zimbabwe Empire, and all of that. You will still see that what is important, do we want to go the way of the American system, the British system, or the Chinese system? Arguably, and this is where we talked about, similar to what we have seen in the ancient kingdom of Mali, China is arguably a democracy. You can call it a one-party state, but that's a one-party democracy. They're doing what they have to do. Taiwan was a one-party state for a long time and developed. What is important is you know your people. If your people are pluralistic in nature and they don't need a figurehead to develop, you can go down that route. If your people need a singular figurehead at a time, and you don't want the distractions of multi-partyism, you go down as long as it delivers development. It's difficult to be prescriptive, and that's why when the West goes about prescribing, you find a lot of hypocrisy in it. Because the same West will tout Saudi Arabia and then suddenly say Iran is a dictatorship. Iran has elections. They get a president elected. I don't remember the last time Saudi Arabia had their king elected. But just because of the Shah, I say, no, they are not a democracy. They are a dictatorship. But my good friend in Qatar, or my good friend in UAE, or my good friend in Saudi Arabia, oh, they are okay, they are a monarchy. What works best for the people? If the people have chosen, as let me borrow this my good friend's words, whom am I?
Wouldn't it? That's a beautiful description, Conrad Damba. I don't know what we need to do now. We have a few comments from our followers, but I want us, we will come back because looking at the influence of the West in Africa and particularly in Ghana, we have to look at it again from another angle. Just look at what is happening in France, the protest that is going on. It's just as a result of the withdrawal of the African Francophone countries that says they will not pay royalties to France. And their economy is going down the ditch. So they have to increase their ages and what have you here and there. Look at what is happening in America. Now we have this bail-in that they are running around with just because their country also went down. They were bailed out by China. Now they are in another critical condition. And they want us to do debt restructuring to enable their economy to flourish. But before we get to that point, I'll give you one question because you are an NDC UK Ireland chapter chairman aspirant and probably one of the hardcores of the NDC. We want to look at the NDC's position as a social democratic party and how true that is as at now. But before I get to that point, let me just take a bit of your time and read the comments from our followers, and then I'll come back to you. So, I think we started with Comrade Malik Dramani Mahama, MTN. Now, Comrade Malik says, congratulations today, Ghana News TV, on your 2-year anniversary, 2 years anniversary. Great job, Endow and Chairman Conrad Damba. We get educated by you guys on your show. Thank you. We're very grateful, Mr. Dramani, for always being part of the show. Also, Superior, very educative and interactive. Watching from Barcelona, Spain. We are in lecture hall listening to history. Kudos to Dr. Damba. Oh, Conrad Damba. Now, I told you at the beginning, people are more enthusiastic in listening to your lecture. Kunti Nana, hey Kunti, how are you this evening? Now your comment comes in. I'm taking my history notes. Wonderful show. Watching from Poland. Congratulations for your 2 years anniversary. We are very grateful that you are part of this history. And I pray you continue to soar higher watching on YouTube. Kunti, we are very grateful that you are part of the show as usual. Emma Devins says, good evening, Dr. Kpan and guest Damba. This one is beyond expectation. Emma, we are grateful that it's indeed beyond expectation. I'm learning a lot. Rose, Serkwere, you are watching us live from Ghana. Are you in Serkwere or you are in Accra? Wherever you are, we are grateful that you are part of the show this evening. Oh, Honorable Sai Togbo, you are watching us from Galindorf. Sai, we are very grateful that you are part of the show, and we are looking forward to welcoming you on this show one of these days. Emma Davis is back again. The West has really stolen too much from us. We need to go back to our roots. In the face of this, would you say that we should consider developing our own democracy engraved with our traditions and culture? Emma, I think Comrade Damba had already given a bit of explanation on this as well. So, and Nana Tafremu, Nana, we are grateful once again, and to you and all your people from Sakina Information Center. You say it's 2 years of good and hard work. Indeed, it is hard work that has brought us this far. May Allah continue to bless you, your station, and to bless you and your station to grow more. Shout outs from Sakina Information Center. Greetings to Prof. Damba. Well, Comrade Damba is now moving from doctor to professor. We're grateful. Um, Comrade Kweku ID says greetings to Nana Yao Asamoah. Nana Yao Asamoah of France. We are grateful that you are part of the show. Greetings from Kweku ID. Noor Maya alias Albert Alan Dachia. Ghana. Great intellectual discourse. I have to get my notebook. Albert, please do. It will help you a lot. I hope you are doing very well this evening. Oh, yeah. Yamborekwan, happy birthday to you. We are grateful that you are part of the show. Good evening, Dr. Kwan. Congratulations on your 2 years anniversary. I have learned a lot from this show. All the best. We are very grateful, Yambore. Oh, I know this show would have ended without a comment coming from no other person but Ni Oto Ankra. Ni Ankra, we are grateful you are part of the show. Oga, I did hear this guy is wild. Indeed, he is wild. And I know you will come and disprove him tomorrow. So tomorrow will be your turn. Ni, we are grateful that you are part of the show this evening. So far, so good. And that is where we are on today's Ghana News TV. MyView show is coming to you live this and every Monday in the evening. And let me remind you that by the grace of God and by your hard work and total support, today's Ghana News TV is 2 years old, and we continue to give you the very best. Within our 2-year period, we have introduced our newspaper, the Evening Tribune. Tribune, when it comes, tribulation, you should expect it. It comes with all the hardcore news items, and we report it as it is, as you see it, and as you hear it. So do make a date with us. It comes out every Wednesday, so Thursday morning is right up there. Get a copy of it and get more informed. Do get in touch with us, and we have any article, we will do the publication for you. And once again, we are grateful that you are part of the show. And as usual, this is where we are. The Evening Tribune. And I tell you, when it's a tribulation, you know how it comes. It hits you right with the right news, in the right form, in the raw form, non-substantiated, and we are right there to help you get the true state of affairs. We do not play around with it. So join us every Thursday morning when this newspaper is out, and get a copy and get well informed. So we go back to whether the Western democracy is indeed suitable for Africa. We have gotten a lot of education this evening. So I want to now ask my big brother, Conrad, that there are some of us, or there are a lot of people out there who are of the view that the NDC has lost its principal purpose, which is to be a social democratic party. How true is this?
It depends on which part of this elephant you touch. You know, there's the proverbial Indian analogy of an elephant with a couple of blind men. They say 7 or 10 blind men. One touched the trunk and said, this elephant is like a big wall. Another touched the tail and said, it's like a very big broom. And yet another touched the stump and said, this is like a very thick and heavy tree. So it depends on the experience that you've had of the NDC. I remember when NDC was successful in putting Honorable Alban Sumani Bagbin as speaker. Ghanaians were all over the moon with the NDC. But of course, when vetting of ministers didn't go well, the NDC was bashed very well. Again, when e-levy was first thrown out by the NDC, Ghanaians were all excited for the NDC. When somehow these people found a way of reversing it, the reverse was the case. And of course, in recent times last week, all of us were left with a lot of sour grapes in our mouths, when, to our disappointment, clearly close to 30 MPs from the NDC fold managed to vote for ministers that we knew should never have been voted for. So we all share in that anger, that disappointment in the NDC. But the question is, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Think about it. If the NDC was not in parliament, what this government would have done. You remember the first time when the NDC was clear minority and not hang parliament. They run roughshod. You could have your say, but they will have their way. So I still believe that the NDC should not necessarily be judged for the mishaps that have happened. I know we shouldn't say one monkey spoils all monkeys in the forest. It's not right. But of course, no party is perfect. No gathering of human beings will have saints. There will always be saints and there will always be sinners. There will be people who are altruistic in how they conduct themselves and those who will capitulate to the least temptation. But we cannot write off the entire party. Look at the track record of the NDC. If the NDC was in power, this nonsense would not have been happening. Fact. The NDC has never had this many ministers mess this government up or country up and still have the appetite to do that. The highest ever we had was 88 ministers. We were told that it was bloated. Now we have 125 and counting. And so I think that Ghanaians should not necessarily, we are all disappointed in the conduct of some MPs of the NDC, but 100 gallant NDC MPs stood their ground. It will be unfair for us to judge the party based on the actions of the minority. Of course, the party is learning lessons. And I'm sure if it means that the next seminal such vote, the party will indicate, show your vote to your neighbor, as it's done somewhere. When it's a crucial one, you do the take and show to the next person or take it and before you go on. If we have to find those ways to rescue Ghanaians, we may be compelled to do that kind of stuff. You know, but I don't think that the NDC has lost its verve. There is no better government than the NDC to develop Ghana. When I was a young man, a young boy in Ghana in the late 80s, early 90s in the northern region, in Upper East region, Akosombo, as we call it, never got to us, being powered by the national grid. Those of us who were lucky to live within the hospital quarters, we had lights because the hospital had to have lights, had a standby generator. They could knock us out. And we had VRA there, Northern Electricity Department, the VRA, they have this massive thermal plant. It used to come on in the morning from about 6 a.m. By 10 p.m. it goes off. So the entire town in Bolga was doomsday. Right. It took the NDC to bring power to Bolga as a case in point across the entire north in the early 90s. And I still remember a famous song that used to go on radio, Yura radio, you know, about Akosombo has reached Ghana, has reached Bolga. We are happy. Yeah. It was the NDC that is responsible for rural electrification by far. And that even bringing power to the people, electric power to the people. Pure water business started springing up. Com centers started springing up. People, the economy grew because you no longer had a situation where your fridge had to go off by 10 p.m. and turn on the next day. You could let it power all night, which means the extra 12 hours there, VRA was making more money to plow into the economy. The NDC road infrastructure, Trans-ECOWAS road from Kintapo, first class road, all the way to Burkina Faso. I'm not even talking about, let me not come to John Mohammed's massive.
I know. If I allow you on this trajectory,
we will not go home today. So
we will go home today. We will go home today. We will not go home today. But you know, it was just to find out if the NDC is still on their social democratic principles. Absolutely. But then I know it will be a topic for another day.
Another day.
Let's look at a bit of what we have seen that indeed we could say on good authority that this whatever they call democracy now, where these people want to tell us that they are bringing it to enlighten us, was rather taken away from us to their place, modified, and now used to exploit us. Well, I'm just saying this because I just gave the example of what is happening in France, what is happening in America, and as we speak now, the Vice President of America is in Ghana. It tells you straight away that there is a concern. That is why she has moved down to Ghana. Yeah. And very often, bilateral agreements that they bring down is just to exploit those of us down there to their advantage. What could be done differently to make things better for we those who are, let me say, we those who are down there? Usually when I say down there, I know my good friend Kofi Adole is always on my neck. I shouldn't say down there. But those of us in Africa, what could we do differently to be able to to benefit from some of these bilateral agreements?
I think that the first and foremost thing is that we need to start governing ourselves. At the moment, Africans are not working for Africans. Africans are working for metropolitan West. And that's what you say. Most of the deals we have, the bilateral deals, they are meant to keep us as hewers of wood and drawers of water. They are not meant to develop us in the full sense of development. If the West was truly interested in the development of Africa, why did they not implement the same Marshall Plan in Africa as they did for Japan, as they did for Germany? You see, thanks to the Marshall Plan, Japan is rubbing shoulders with the Americans. Germany is by far the strongest economy in Europe. But the whole idea is democracy of Africa has always been about telling us what to do so that we can continue to be the market for their products and the source of their raw materials. That is why Congo, modern day Congo, is a basket case, because everybody is scrambling for the uranium or for the lithium or whatever is there. And so the starting point is if the West truly wants us to develop. By the way, Kamala Harris is in Ghana. The first thing he talks about is we have to respect human rights, about LGBT. How is that democracy? If the people in Ghana, for example, say, I'm not transphobic or homophobic. I believe in, look, whatever you want to do, do. You want to marry a man, fine. You want to marry a woman, your problem. You want to marry 4 wives, your problem. In Africa, we don't even, African tradition, polygamy has no limit. But what I don't want to say, because I marry 1 wife, you must marry 1 wife. Because I marry a woman, you can tell me, no, you have to start marrying men. You see, that is not democracy. It's not one size fits all. What the Americans want, let them do. That's the primary thing. Her press conference was on LGBT. And then she says they will give their resident economic whatever to help our government overcome its economic challenges. And our IT manager, Baumia, was there smiling like a very suppliant altar boy. The man who says he's an economic whiz-kid, they have come. They are not sending any, they're just our resident economic rep would help people put through your economic challenges. Ghana doesn't need aid. What we need is fair trade. Think about it. If all our cocoa, if we were allowed to keep our cocoa in Ghana, manufacture chocolates and distribute to the world, sell to the world, can you imagine how wealthy we would be? If we were allowed to retain our own gold, process it and send it out. But let us try it. Even the US, they will put embargoes on certain products, the export of it, to support their domestic industries. But if Ghana starts to do it, sanctions will come, open your market, so that they can flood it with cheap milk chocolates instead of our pure raw cocoa chocolates and take the cocoa away. We don't need aid. We need trade. We need fair trade. We need to be allowed to govern ourselves. At the moment, we are not governing ourselves. They put you there and they keep you there if you serve their interest. If not, you'll be out like Patrice Lumumba. You'll be out like Thomas Sankara. In fact, you'll be out like Gaddafi. The moment Gaddafi decided that Africa had to have its own satellite to take care of all Africans, save us $600 million a year back then, he became a target. Prior to that, he was one of the darling boys of the West. So we, in a certain sense, we cannot wait for the West to come. The people have to start putting people in place and be prepared to vote them out if they don't do the will of the people. But we have fallen for these free things. When they say free education, good. Free 1 month, 1 day, free this, free that, free this, free that. There is no free lunch. The aid we are collecting, whatever free things we think we are collecting, why do you think somebody will feed you and you tell them what to do? When they feed you, they'll tell you what to do.
What to do.
So we need to learn to be self-sufficient and learn to go back to our roots. We survived long before the white man set foot. When we were trading with Arabs on equal keel, when we were trading with Europeans through the transatlantic slave trade, through Celta into Europe on equal keel, we were independent even at the times of the Roman Empire. There were very gallant, strong kings. One of that king, somewhere around modern-day Abyssinia area, around modern-day Ethiopia, his name actually is part of this whole Africa thing. Africa was not called Africa. Africa has its own name.
Okay.
Africa, I mean, I'm sure you can look it up. The viewers here can. Al-Kebulan, that's Africa's original name. Egypt was Kemet, but we stood our own. We've let it go. We want free things. We need to go back to the constitution of Mali, where it doesn't tolerate laziness or idleness. We need to work, stop the freebies, and learn to do what we want and not do what others say. Until then, we are going to continue to be subject to neocolonialism.
Conrad, you know what? There are some comments. I need to read them to your hearing. There's a comment in particular that is important to me, but I'll get to it. I just want to. Uncle Safa is part of it. He says, good advent. Sorry, I joined late and that's failed to hear the submission of my chairman, Conrad. Congratulations on your 2-year anniversary. Thanks to my friend, the chief of Jamaica Road, for bullying me to watch. But then, Yembore says they are back in Domso, that the light has been off since 6 p.m. and they are wondering whether it will come back or they'll sleep in darkness. Patience Daku also gives our another congratulatory message for our 2nd anniversary and watching from Hamburg. But the comment that I want Conrad to pick up is this one coming from Ima Davids. He has given you a very beautiful title, Dr. Damba. Are you sure you should not become the flag bearer instead of becoming a chapter chairman? You are the man. And David comes and says, impressive. Conrad, over to you. You should be the flag bearer of the NDC. It means that you have a lot to play in trying to bring back the NDC on its feet. The party, yes, a lot of people are looking after it. A lot of people in Ghana are seeing the NDC as the best alternative. But here we are. Because all the stories that you have given, what we need to go back and practice, which will help the entire country. I wonder if they will be prepared to listen to such comments. But here you are a member of the NDC, even as you are aspiring to lead one of the chapters, and we all know the central point of the UK and Ireland chapter when it comes to NDC activities. So here we are. The question to you is that should you not become the flag bearer instead of a chapter chairman? Emma is waiting for your response.
I'll answer it in typical Nigerian fashion. Our neighbors, they say, number one, monkeys play by sizes. And number two, when you praise the frog that it can swim, it will go into deeper waters and it will drown. So, so yes, I thank you, Emma, for the confidence imposed in me. But let me respect the size of monkey that I am, But I think that the reality is this: we are all Africans, and it takes us. We all go on. We become adults before we even learn some of these things about ourselves. The textbooks that were given to us by the colonialists is what we still largely go with. If we were teaching our kids right from primary 1 or kindergarten all the way to university, this is your culture. Democracy was part of you. Self-reliance, self-governance has always been part of you. Our people will grow up, our children will grow up knowing that they can be masters of their own destiny. Unfortunately, I'll give you a funny example. When we were in JSS, they used to teach us, what do you call it? Is it the equinox or what was it? Where longer days, shorter nights, shorter days, longer nights. I used to sit in my miserable little place there. I say, but when it's in Africa, when it's 6 a.m., there's sunshine. When it's 6 p.m., there's dusk. It's like pepe. We have to just chew and pour and write the exam, pass and go.
Yeah.
As soon as you get to Europe, now you understand. Because when it's winter, 4 p.m., it's already dark. Now you know it's shorter days, longer nights. When it's summer, 10 p.m., it's still bright like that. And you know, this is it. But they wrote it in our social studies books. And we were studying it. We used it to go and write A levels, O levels, SSCE. It was not African solutions for our problem. If we can write our textbooks, we educate ourselves. You see the Malian constitution, it was clear that education of the children is paramount and it's everybody's duty to do it. We learn at our environment. We master our environment. A lot of the principles we struggle with in Africa is because they are not relevant to us. We chew and pour. In fact, it's worse when we come here and we learn as is. Then we go and we want to use what is happening in a very organized, formal economy to manage a largely informal economy. And then we fail and we say, it's just that the system is difficult. The system should be built based on a way of life, based on an environment. And that's why countries that develop, they shape their governance according to their environment. They cut their coat according to the cloth they have and not the other way around. So I think the solution is not one person. Nkrumah came and did his bit and went. It's not a number of Nkrumahs you get. It's getting the critical mass of the people who know our history, know our culture, know that we've done it before, and therefore no one needs to preach to us about democracy. That allows us to flourish. How were we running our economies under the Kingdom of Ghana, Empire of Ghana, or Songhai, or Mali, without inflation overrunning us? How were we running it in the Ashanti Kingdom, the Oyo Kingdom? You know, how were we running the Kingdom of Benin, the Empire of Benin? We need to learn to cut our coat according to our circumstances, and I'm sure we'll be fine.
I think so. There's one more question that somebody wants you to make an attempt at, but then our time is fast spent. But all the same, Albert says, Comrade Damba, you believe that modern day Africans really have a sense of unique identity and purpose that is strong enough to follow their own path? That's
Yes.
what Albert is asking.
Yes. If we look within ourselves, for all things, look to yourself. Remember that?
Yeah.
Good.
Look to yourself first.
If we look within ourselves, we will see the inner Africans that we are. The problem is when we are living a borrowed life, it's difficult for us to see. When we are copying and pasting, it's difficult. Every society, the way we are shaped, the way we are groomed, we develop a certain sense of personality. And that is why somebody will tell you that if you bring up a pig barking, it will probably be barking like a dog. If we look within, we will find ourselves. Of course, we all like this modern world, but why do we go back to the village to, well, I'm going to my village to have my peace of mind? You're going back to the root of your soul. That is how you were brought up. So you don't have any problem. Take your child who's been metropolitanized here. Ew, they don't want to go there because they didn't grow up in it. So it's not in their soul. We need to stop laughing. We are in local acquired foreign accent. We are Ghanaians. You see the way we are talking Ghana.
Yeah.
Then I start slanging and say, you know, doing Kofi Wayo on you. I am deceiving myself. Let my personality come out. How can I grow up in Ghana all my life, speaking Ghana? Then I come here a few years, then suddenly my tonation change. And I'm speaking Oyibo. So Albert, I believe that we can discover ourselves, but we need to make the mental effort. At the moment, not in Africa. We don't like our own local rice. And we're complaining about inflation. We like Chicago Star, Texas Star. We're giving money to farmers there. We make our government's life impossible. Meanwhile, we know our local rice is nutritious. Millet. The other day, I went to Holland and Barrett. Took a break this week. You know the baba fruit that we used to harvest, shake, and the powder.
Yeah.
They put small of it in a container like this, and they're selling for 15 pounds. And they say it's called superfood. Millet. They call it superfood. And we go to Ghana, we say we don't want millet TZ. We want pure corn, diabetes pure corn. You know, that's what we want. If you go home and they give you that toro, that baba fruit, you say you are not a local person. They should get you some exotic fruit. The same people who have bastardized it, take it through the back, put it in superfood, and they sell it to you for an arm and a leg. So we need to rediscover what we have, where we come from. A lot of our problems economically will be solved if we get proud of ourselves. You don't go to Japan or China and see them eating. In fact, most of the restaurants, they'll give you chopsticks. But you go to our place, they'll give you TZ and give you a fork and a knife or a spoon. Meanwhile, our 5 fingers, this fork has been the most trusted one.
That has been a wonderful discussion, Comrade Damba. Ni Oto Ankra also makes a comment here, but I'm not sure we might be able to find an answer. How come you are in the UK and Mary is trying to run down the UK NDC down? We have been fighting her from Germany. What is the UK NDC doing to shut her down? I'm surprised. I don't know. This Mary lady, Boadu or whatever it is. And Bob says, very impressive, Professor Damba is very good, watching from St. Petersburg, Russia. I don't know. Our time is fast spent. Oh, you want to... This Mary Boadu thing, are you aware of it?
I know her very well. I participated in an anti-Galamsey demonstration with her at the High Commission. She was once a member. She actually joined us. And then for one reason or the other, she self-exited. Now, as to why I'm here and I can't deal with her, I think my response again will be, I'll be honest with you, I am not very social media savvy. I'm a talkative, but I'm lazy at writing or going onto Facebook. So perhaps we should do a bit more on that front. But that being said, there's a structure. I'm a member. It doesn't stop me from doing it, but I believe that we have executives at branch level, we have executives at chapter level, and it'll probably be rogue if I started going after her in the name of the chapter. I'll be breaking protocol or breaching protocol. But it's a good point you have raised. One way or the other, we need to be able to counter. Sometimes she tells truths that are too close to for comfort. So we should learn the lessons from that. But of course, I think sometimes she also overdoes it. We just have to find a way of making sure we are correcting her without necessarily opening a social media battle with her all the time.
Yeah. That is very true. So it's been a pleasure having you once again. You know, I think today everybody feels that the show should continue for 2 hours, 3 hours, and we know you would deliver. But unfortunately, time is not on our side. I think we still have an opportunity so that you have a word for all the viewers who have massaged. Oh my goodness. You know, Uncle Safia is back. He said, Chairman Conrad, I couldn't help but to agree with you concerning the root cause of economic and political malice. As a development economist, our economy can only become sustainable and develop if only we will start from the level of self-reliance. Our economy hasn't reached the level of developed economies yet. We want to consume goods and services available in the developed economies and refusing to patronize our own. I think you hit this one right, and Uncle has come to buttress it as well. Uncle, I'm very grateful that today you are part of the show, and I'm sure very soon you will always be our let me say our constant guest on the show. But to you, Conrad Damba, we are very grateful for enlightening us. This is an opportunity that many more people get enlightened, get educated, and get entertained as well. We are very grateful for your time, and I'm pretty sure you will have a few words for your viewers and for those who have followed us up to this point before we run down the program. Over to you.
Thank you very much, my brother. Before I say my last word, let me just be clear that I'm not worthy to be addressed as a doctor or professor. I'm a doctoral student, still finding time to finish my various theses. I just enjoy it so much. I don't want to finish it, if you like. But yes, let me not take credit for what is not mine. But I think it's been my pleasure having discourse with my brothers and sisters. But like you said, time is fast spent, and like our elders say, when the conversation goes for too long, the lies start to come in. I think you forgot something Emma David said. She particularly liked, apologies if I've got the gender wrong, Article 17, which says that a lie that has been alive for 40 years becomes
40 years.
And she said that is the cornerstone of democracy. So I saw you missed reading that out. I couldn't help cracking up on that. But yes, to all my comrades across the globe, all Ghanaians that have listened, it's been my pleasure sharing this. I think congratulations on your 2-year anniversary. We should all try. I mean, all of us know something in some shape or form. Let us take advantage of this platform. Let's share our experiences. It's our collective experiences that can make our homeland better. If we share, we all learn something from it. And if God willing, any of us finds ourselves in a position where we are able to serve motherland in Ghana, then of course we can begin to implement some of these things. So it's been my pleasure speaking to my comrades in the UK. I just want to say a shout out to you. The race is still on. Let me encourage people, if your name is not on your register, send your evidence direct to the EC or speak to your branch executives to forward the evidence so that every single person that is required, that is eligible to vote, gets on the register. Let's follow due process. And let's avoid this temptation of maligning institutions until we have valid cause to do so. Let us follow the process. You go to, you try to, if you give your evidence not accepted, you can appeal to CIC. If it's not accepted, you can appeal to IRD, and then you can go to FEC all the way through. Exercise your franchise. Make sure you are in the vote. We want every voter that is eligible to get there. Now is not the time for us to start throwing blame game, putting out information that we cannot substantiate. You know, Beggar than neighbor politics should not be the bane of the day. That my neighbor has does not mean I can't have. Both can always have. Let us follow due process and make ourselves proud. This is not the first time. We've had this in 2018. We did similar, but at the end of it all, we all agreed that there was some form of a fair process. Sadly, because of the negative politics we engaged in then, to this day, there are still some who lost, who still think that they would have won, except that the EC was not valid. Unfortunately, the same EC head today is the chairman of our disciplinary committee. And so the irony of it is that when you bastardize an institution, and then rightly or wrongly, you then become the one who wins, you have a problem now telling others that what you told them is not true. If I tell you that the EC is corrupt without evidence, without following due process, and then I win, and then I come and tell you it was free and fair, why will you believe it? Is it a case of because I win, they were fair? But if I had lost, they would be unfair. So my advice is this: social media warring and battles will not solve the problem. Standing on radio and making all the noise you want to make won't solve the problem. Engage the institutions with your evidence. Fight hard. I'm prepared to fight for my branch, my members, not because I'm a contestant. I fought for my members in 2013. I fought for my members in 2018. And I will fight for my members. As long as I know that they are my members, I will fight, even if it means that I walk out of this race for my members to be accepted. But all candidates do the same. Use the legitimate tools. As leaders, we should not be inciting insurrection against institutions, because you never know. We may as well win. Because 4 years ago, the EC was accused of doing the bidding of the then chairman. The chairman lost. Chairman Balba won. No one can take the credit for his winning away from him. And anybody who says he rigged to win, that is your problem. But we should always hasten slowly. Festina lente, as the Latin people will say. So good night, my comrade, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you on the flip side.
Wonderful. That are the parting words from no other person but Comrade Conrad Damba from the UK and Ireland chapter of the National Democratic Congress. And we'll be having a very beautiful discussion on how the Western democracy, or how democracy is more suitable for Africa, or one cap fits all. And it is on the show, My View, coming to you live from today's Ghana News TV. And as I said at the beginning, thanks to all of you for your support and your presence. We've just clocked 2 years, and we know with you in mind, we will go higher heights, we will go better, and will improve by the day. Stay tuned and join us this and every Monday on My View show. Until then, have a good night, and God bless you all.
Ya kana se wantia ye jao ehenya beto mampam oso ntie so dogo vinwa bem mampam oso ntie nani amuka nyina guna swati mu beswara